This video is brought to you by Bigpipi Reddit. I hate my disabled sibling, and kinda my parents too. I have an older sister with severe cerebral palsy and Turner syndrome. I never got a childhood. Sibling required constant 24-hour care. I was basically forced to raise my two younger brothers. My sister would constantly scream and shit everywhere, even eat her own excrement. When my sister was younger, my parents would try to take her to restaurants and other places to try and make us feel like a normal family, and she would scream there too. It was awful. Everyone would look. I was not allowed to have friends over, and many times not allowed to go over to friends' houses. When I was about 16, I got sick of it and made clear to my parents that this needed to end. My parents then promised me that she would be sent to a group home at 18, so I decided to stay close to home during college so I could kinda get a few childhood years I never had. Well, then my mom reneged on that, and at 24, my sister still lives with them. I spent my whole life waiting, giving, and suffering because of my parents and my sister. It is the most devastating thing to sacrifice everything, be given nothing, suffer worse than others, and then be lied to when you think there is finally a silver lining. Worse yet, I later found out that when my sister was born, my mom didn't think she could handle it, so she thought about giving my sister up for adoption. My dad discouraged that. Then when my sister got to about 13, my dad decided they couldn't take care of all of us, so he wanted to go give her up, and by that time my mom wouldn't do it. Their relationship got so much worse, fighting over her, and they finally announced a divorce last year. I grew up with no close friends, hating my parents, hating my disabled sibling. Even my two brothers resented me for acting as a third parent. I literally had fucking no one. It was indescribable the torture I went through. I have severe anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues, and what sucks about this is I'm a fairly smart, decent-looking individual. I just needed a childhood and fair start to life, and instead I got this. I hate to say it, but if I have a disabled child, I will 100% give them up. Though I acknowledge it is mostly my parents' fault. I will always resent my parents even if I love them. As for my sister, I don't think I could ever not hate her. I've even wondered if I made a mistake by not killing her when I was young enough to not be prosecuted. I can't spend a day not being under the influence of something. I've been smoking weed since I was 16 and have drank occasionally since I was 8, but younger than that. Since I've started smoking weed, I've probably smoked every day or every other day. I've gone months without weed, but that was only when I had no access to it. After I turned 21, I began drinking a lot more because I had access to it. I would drink in the morning sometimes and have spent certain days drunk from morning to night. When I have weed, I don't tend to drink as much, but I'll end up smoking a few times a day. I feel like such a failure of a human being. Why is it so hard to go a day without having my mind altered by something? I never want to try any opiates or harder drugs because knowing my habits, I feel like I could destroy my life. I have close friends and people in my life, but when it comes down to it, I'm not sure if I care about them. I think this is perhaps spurred by being alone in quarantine for a prolonged amount of time, but I realize that nowadays, I just flow with people, but I don't give them a second thought outside of their presence. I think it kind of hit me when one of my friends called me their best friend, and I was just surprised. I support people because I want them to support me in the future, but I don't do it out of genuine feelings. I go through the motions of what I'm supposed to say and do so I can get that from them later. I have friends who have been very appreciative towards me for what I've done for them when it comes to their dire needs, but I just say and do things people want to see or hear. It's never been because I genuinely empathize with them. I don't think I lack empathy entirely because I empathize with fictional characters all the time, and I empathize with my younger brother. Though, anyone outside those categories, I don't really feel an emotional connection that lingers outside of their physical existence. If they disappeared, I don't think I would miss them. I think I would just miss the things they gave me: social company, emotional support, etc. I don't know if there's something wrong with me, or maybe I'm misinterpreting what it means to care for people or misinterpreting friendship dynamics. But I thought to confess and gauge how other people feel about it. I gave my friend a fatal dose of heroin and it still haunts me. I did time in jail, I went to therapy, and I sought forgiveness from her family. I worked on myself. I went to rehab. I'm now 6 years sober. I warn the youth about the dangers of drugs. But I still remember that night vividly. Her birthday is coming up, and that's when the guilt intensifies. I've thought about suicide before. I took a life and I was a worthless piece of shit, so I deserve to die. I know I didn't cause her addiction. It's possible she would have overdosed without my help. But it doesn't matter because in this reality, I was the one who did it. And I will never not feel guilty about it. I told my mom to just die already while she was sick with cancer. I felt like this is the best place to confess this guilt that has been a part of me for the last 10 years. My sweet mother passed away when I was 9 years old. During her gruesome battle with ovarian cancer, I got frustrated seeing her rapidly deteriorate. I just said what came to my childish mind, "I wish you would just die already." Her response is what continues to ache my soul. She looked at me without words and began quietly sobbing. 9-year-old me couldn't comprehend the situation, so I left her to cry and walked away with guilt. We never spoke about it, and she passed away months after that happened. I wasn't a bad child, I just wasn't prepared to handle seeing my mother suffer the way she did, and it made me frustrated. Rest in peace, Mama, you cross my mind every day. Edit. There's an overwhelming amount of positive comments and I just wanted to thank everyone who took the time to say encouraging words.